Welcome back to Homebound with Rika. This is Rika, and I have on the Zoom one of my oldest, he's not old, he's just known me for the longest, friends, Fidi Mwero, and he is a
Hey
mental health
everyone.
professional from the Bay Area. And Fidi, just tell us a little bit about you, your mental health background, your area of expertise, what you're bringing to the table today.
Sure. I mean that word expertise, my word. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I specialize in two areas. One of them is working with kids and children and families and adolescents, working for a large mental health and health provider in the Northern California area. And then also in private practice, I work with adults and couples and yeah.
Well, you're the perfect person to speak with today. So how has your role changed as we've been in isolation? Have your conversations, have you seen themes in working with some of your, do you call them clients or patients? What's the
For the
correct
sake of
term?
this, I'll call them clients.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what are some of the themes? I'm sure there's a lot of overlap between, maybe you feel like you're in a hamster wheel right now. I don't know. Tell me about that.
Well, I think you're right. So the main thing that has changed is, doing everything virtually. So that's, what we just talked about. But also, I find myself sometimes talking about a lot of the same things, almost no matter what we were working on before. Now we're talking about how to um, kind of get through this pandemic without, having a breakdown or managing whatever mental health struggles they were already having, what this exacerbates. So, instead of talking about social anxiety or school refusal or attention and focus or, what it's like to be single in San Francisco and start dating again and da 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 da. I'm talking about, I'm doing check ins and seeing how people are doing and how their families are doing and, um, having having them identify some of their strategies and talk about what they're doing to get through this,
Mm-hmm.
and if they feel like their tools aren't strong enough, or we'll work together to figure out what could be helpful, short term and long term.
Hmm. Man, that's so fascinating. It's just the most bizarre thing in the world to have all these different issues and challenges to all kind of be focused on one insurmountable challenge with no end in sight.
Right, right. The uncertainty is really
Ugh,
the big trigger
yes.
finding, even more than the virus itself.
Mm-hmm.
People are a little, I'm finding people are, they are fearful of catching the virus, or their um, loved ones who are in the at-risk categories catching the
Mm-hmm.
virus. But also the unknown is what people are really triggered by, is what
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing. So
Yeah, I would definitely say it's the same for me. There's no real end in sight. And then there's the question of, if we are allowed to leave again, is there going to be another
right.
wave of the epidemic again? So it's just a lot of confusion and a lot of, and so how do you, I guess, for me, I feel like I'm kind of stuck in the same, I don't know what day it is anymore. Like I'm just kind of in
Hmm.
this cycle of laundry, trying to keep my kids going. Yesterday I had to, my husband came home because he's still working, and I was snapping at my kids, and
Hmm.
he looks me in the face and he's like, "Do you need to get out of here?" And I was like, "Yes, I need to go for a drive." So I drove and I got some ice cream and I sat in my van and just like ate like a weirdo in my van, watching
Right
people
on.
walk their dogs, like just feeling like I was gonna flip a switch any second, because it's like seeing the same people over and over without that light at the end of the tunnel to get you
Right,
through it. It's
right.
so anyway, maybe I called you on this call for you to give me I'm just kidding, wink wink.
Well, you're totally right. I think, we might get a chance to talk about it, but some of what you did there, like even that tagging in and out as far as, who's responsible for the children at that moment, that's a pretty good strategy. And also like knowing when you're at your limit and just like finding some solace as well. That's like, that was a good call. And the ice cream, yum.
Wasn't the best ice cream, but yeah, that's what I needed in that moment. Um,
Mhm,
so I wanted to ask you, since this is triggering for probably most people, probably even mentally healthy people, much less like the
mhm,
population who struggles with anxiety and depression, where can you describe for me, what does anxiety look like when it's manifesting itself in someone's life? How do we identify it? What are some of the what are some ways that we can notice it in our own lives? And then I have
mhm.
follow-up questions for that.
Sure, sure. So yeah, it's just like you were saying, like, people are struggling, whether they're people who are usually can, feel pretty balanced as far as mental health and feel like they can manage okay. Everyone's struggling. The extroverts are struggling, the introverts are struggling, believe it or not, they are. And so yeah, with anxiety, I feel like I feel like sometimes I can be like I feel like anxiety's agent. Like I'm over here like shopping anxiety and trying to like let people understand that anxiety is not necessarily the worst thing in the world, right? Because it gets such a bad reputation. In fact, um, it's anxiety has its job in our lives. It's a normal part of the human emotional experience. In
Hmm.
fact, if a pandemic is going on and you didn't have a little bit of anxiety, that might be a cause for concern. Like you might be that person who's out there on the beaches talking to the news, spreading coronavirus. So, a healthy dose of anxiety is actually something that gets humanity, society through dangerous things, individuals and families through things that could potentially be dangerous.
Hmm.
That low level or mid level anxiety is probably what motivated people to start buying a few extra goods, non perishable goods, to be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
That low level anxiety probably motivates people to do the right thing with masks and gloves and watch the news and stay informed.
Like
In reg,
vigilance, right? When vigilance
yeah,
would be, yeah, that's what I'm going to use my
totally.
next argument about my anxiety. I'm just vigilant, Aaron Meyer.
Vigilance, absolutely, vigilance and preparedness, right?
Yeah.
We all have experienced some kind of anxiety when we are studying for a test or getting ready for a presentation, right? Or building our doomsday bunkers. Like that's, I
Yes.
don't know if that's healthy anxiety, but that's anxiety basically is there to help you, in the moment, get you out of a dangerous situation over
Hmm.
sort of a long-term period, help you prepare for that which might be necessary to prepare for. And so sometimes it's helpful to reframe the anxiety as something that is actually helping us get through some of this.
Hmm.
And so, but kind of like what you were saying, for people who struggle with anxiety disorders or kind of extreme or high anxiety, it can get in the way of making good decisions and daily functioning, right? And
Hmm.
if it's something that you struggle with, um, if you struggle with it, kind of long term, it can, on a regular basis, mild, moderate, or severe anxiety. It can lead to things like panic attacks or
Mm.
avoidance. Like you might be in your home, without food and needing to go out and get some food, but the anxiety is getting in the way of somebody getting to the grocery store.
Hmm.
Um, and so then at that point is when, I say, hey, maybe it's time to reach out for some support, try out some of those coping skills if you have them, or reach out to a professional so, you can, get some strategies in place to calm down a little bit and
Hmm.
prepare, bring that anxiety level down. So
And
yeah.
I thank you for saying that. I'd never thought of anxiety as like a tool or something positive in your life, because I think I've struggled with it for my whole life. And I think it has been at a low level. It hasn't been at an extreme level, but I've always seen it as the enemy. So I
Hmm.
appreciate you saying that. That is helpful. Now, what about depression And I think that anxiety and depression can kind of be lumped into the same category sometimes, and there's a relationship there. But talk to me about what it means to be sad, or how we can recognize if we're sinking into clinical depression or not.
Sure, absolutely. So, again, I'm not I don't stand for sadness as much as I stand for anxiety. So, um, but yeah, again, it's kind of knowing the difference with when it comes to depression. Sometimes we hear people throw the word around like, "Oh my gosh, coronavirus is out there. I haven't seen my friends. I'm depressed,"
Mm-hmm.
right? And so the question you're kind of asking yourself is, is this, do I have the blues? Am I just kind of feeling a little blah, like experiencing some ennui? Is this temporary sadness that's been triggered by something that's happened? One of the things that I think some people might be going through right now with some of the people passing away for any reason, including coronavirus symptoms and such, they could be grieving. And
Mm-hmm.
grieving as a term is a form of sadness. And
Mm-hmm.
grieving, again, sadness and grief is a normal part of the human emotional experience.
Mm-hmm.
Temporary sadness is okay to have. It lets us know that something's going on in our lives. It would behoove us to take a minute, sit down, process what's going on. It prompts us to just slow things down and check in with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you're grieving for a couple of weeks to several months, actually, is relatively normal.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if there's things that are going on, global pandemics and things that are related to them can trigger sadness.
Mm-hmm.
I think of all the seniors who will not have a graduation this
Yeah.
year, high school seniors, college seniors who have been really looking forward to it. And that can lead to all kinds of emotional issues, anxiety or depression,
Mm-hmm.
sadness, and such. So there are real triggers for people to experience this loss, this sadness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Something you might experience, and so what I like to talk about is to, kind of know the difference between this temporary sadness
Mm-hmm.
and long-term despair,
Right.
and try to, if you're experiencing sadness and it seems like it's going on for a little bit, you've got your low energy, changes in sleep patterns, so you might be sleeping too much or not sleeping enough. You might experience some mood changes, so mood swings, you're feeling down often. The sadness that feels like heavy, and it just feels like, sometimes it's just so hard to just roll out of bed and get going. um, Another, that might be something that's more clinical depression versus sadness. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I like to, talk about is like, what do your days look like? How's your daily functioning? With any kind of mental health struggle, whether it's anxiety or depression, if it's getting in the way of your daily functioning, like if you're so depressed, you stopped showering, you stopped changing your clothes, you stopped eating, you stopped taking care of your kids, you've stopped going to work or looking for work or things like that, that might be clinical depression, and it might be time to check in with a professional, reach out for some support.
Mm-hmm.
It might be mild, might be moderate, it might be severe. Sometimes it shows up with, uh, thoughts of suicide or self-harm. That is definitely a time to check in with a professional. Seek emergency help if you are having a psychiatric emergency. I can't say that enough. Keep yourself
Yes.
safe, right?
Yeah.
Um, and there are mental health professionals, hospitals, places that you can reach out to help you get out of that deep cycle. If we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about severe clinical depression,
Mm-hmm.
what most of us might be experiencing is some of that mild to moderate,
Mm-hmm.
just this change that's happened, is it sucks. Because
Yeah,
it's not
it just
fun.
sucks. It's okay to say that. This really
Yeah.
sucks. And I think that what you're saying about this is a season of grief. We had plans, like my
Mm,
family, we had a vacation, my dream vacation And I know this isn't all
Mm-hmm.
about me, but we had to throw that dream away. And we've been readying the senior class that we've known for 4 years. They were getting ready to graduate, and we're still not sure what is going to happen in a few weeks,
Mm-hmm.
but there's graduates that won't be able to walk down. There's all these dreams that are not coming to fruition, and that's super sad.
Absolutely.
So it's
And just kind of
okay. It's okay to acknowledge the fact that it just really sucks, right?
absolutely. It's okay to acknowledge it. Be in your feelings for a couple of days if you need to. Absolutely. And acknowledging it actually, acknowledging it, trying to even name it,
Hmm.
can help relieve the how intensely you experience it. Um,
Hmm. And
so yeah.
let's go into that. I really wanted, I know that you said you usually have a spiel that you're talking with people about, and I don't know what you meant about that, but is it
I
just
do. I do.
tell me what that
So
is.
it's interesting. So there's this what I find myself repeating myself a little bit, which is totally fine because we're all kind of collectively going through the same thing.
Yeah.
And so for for both people who are living alone or people who are part of a couple or partners or whatnot, or people with children, teens and whatnot, I talk a little bit about what could be helpful to just kind of survive and maintain your mental health and your physical health as you get through this. And
Yes.
so yeah, so like one of the main things I talk about is just developing some semblance of structure.
Hmm.
We're how many weeks into this now? Like,
We are almost 3 weeks. We will be hitting 3 weeks on Sunday for my family. Not that
yes.
I'm keeping track or
So
anything.
this is day 21,
Yeah.
hour 3, minute 25. So yeah, some kind of, when it first started and all these children all of a sudden were at home and had nowhere to go in the morning, and all these people are at home and have no work to get up and go to, there was this sort of rebound bliss that was happening because they get to sleep in and don't have a lot to do. And
Hmm.
so we talked about, that being okay, get
Hmm.
used to the adjustment.
Hmm.
So some people are just now getting stay-at-home orders. Here in California, we've had it for a while.
Hmm.
So it's okay to have a couple of off days at first. Get used to just being at home. Your pets are going to be adjusting, your kids are going to be adjusting, you'll be adjusting. It's okay. You don't have to like learn a new language and learn a new instrument right away. Just be those first couple of days. Maybe do a little planning, right, to alleviate some anxiety. And then after that, what's been helpful, you've probably heard this a lot in the online articles in the news or whatever, but having some semblance of structure
Hmm.
to organize your day, because feeling like you have some control is it can help alleviate the anxiety. So
Hmm.
one of the things I've been saying a lot is control the controllables,
Hmm.
and uncontrollables, try to tolerate it or solve the problem or whatever you can do. But if you can have some controllables, you can control them. So
Hmm.
yeah, be mindful of how much you're sleeping or how much you're not sleeping,
Hmm.
things like that.
How about relationships? This is a huge part of what you do as a therapist. How can we not kill each other?
You mean the people we live with?
Yes. Specifically the people that we are stuck, I mean, blessed to be around
Yes.
24/7.
Yes, yes. Well, something that you just talked about earlier is really, that was a really good strategy, I think. So, as you're developing some semblance of structure, remember to build into the structure some alone time for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So the kids don't always have to be around each other. You don't always have to be around the kids. You don't always have to be around your partner. Um, it's okay to say, hey, 3 o'clock is go play by yourself time. Mommy will play by herself. Dad will play by himself. You know, whoever is in the house, grandparents will go on their own. Like everyone
Mm-hmm.
can go find something to do on their own, and have some alone time. I think if you are, you know, part of a raising children in a situation with, you know, a couple where there's, you know, two parents and you
Mm-hmm.
can tag in and out, you know, giving each other that time where one parent can go, you know, sit somewhere and have some ice cream. It's like awesome. Um, and yeah, and also, you know, communicate, you know, that's like a huge thing. So if there's something, some of you may be realizing some like habits, you haven't spent as much time around each other
Mm-hmm.
ever as you have in the last 3 weeks, and you're
Yeah.
noticing some things about each other. And you know, number one, like, I think sometimes we forget that we can learn how to tolerate some things. So if you can just let it go, like let it go. So you know, it's
Mm-hmm.
something, pick your battles. And if it's
Mm-hmm.
something that you need to talk about it. Be mindful of how emotional you're coming at people with the situation, and you know, be
Mm-hmm.
mindful of, you know, staying calm, cool, collected. Um, talk to each other.
Yeah.
You know, that's the huge thing. Talk to each other and be kind. Just be kind to each other.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I mean, I know all these things and
Girl, same. Same.
it's it's a different thing to put it into practice. I made the mistake yesterday of not bringing back ice cream for Aaron. And so we had to talk about that. And it was
That's awesome.
yeah. So we're practicing communication and trying to get over hurt feelings and stuff. But it ended on a good note. We had a really good conversation last night, and I expressed why I was feeling overwhelmed with everything. And the kids have been super
Hmm.
clingy through this time. Like it's like they have to be
Hmm.
physically sitting on me at all hours
Hmm.
of the day, and it's just overwhelming. So they're feeling it in a way that they can't really express,
Right.
and it's just it's just very weighty on all of us. And so they know
Absolutely.
something's going on even though they don't really know. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's just a lot. It's just a lot. And Vida, I know you said that we're going to post some resources below, but are there any that you wanted to highlight that people can go if they're feeling overwhelmed right now, or just feel like they need to take that step to help their own mental health during this time?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, like we were saying, knowledge is power. So knowledge can be power, but then too much, not like the way we've learned how to gain knowledge and is to like, it's like open the fire hose and
Yes.
watch
Drink
cable news,
drink up. I
drink from
know.
drink from the
Guilty.
cable news fire hose and
Yep.
whatnot. So part of it is just kind of being mindful how much we're sort of seeking that sort of reassurance. It's kind of an anxious behavior, right? So just like how, you know, kids might be clinging with parents were clingy to like Anderson Cooper or whomever is on
Mhm.
TV telling us what's happening, right? So just kind of be mindful of what like how much time you're spending um, consuming all of that, but at the same time do seek some information if you need to, from, you know, CDC or your local public health websites and such. For parents and kids, there's we're gonna I'll give you some of these links. PBS has been great with developing some videos and such that
Mm.
include some of your children's favorite characters from their favorite PBS shows
Mhm.
that can have shown up actually in the past whenever there's anything that is sort of this like nationwide fear that's going on.
Mhm.
So we give you some links to PBS and, you know, how to talk to your kids about coronavirus. Some language that can be helpful
Mhm.
um, for talking about coronavirus. For yourself personally, I like to, you know, mindfulness and guided meditation are great to activate some of those neurotransmitters that help you to calm down. They're like the anti-anxiety neurotransmitters. It's like,
Hmm.
you know, like a natural Xanax. Um,
Yes.
and so, you know, using the Calm app or any, like basically any app that can do some guided meditation um, can be helpful for adults partners, even doing it as a whole family to access some of that, intentionally access some of those calming strategies, to just bring some of that tension down and relax a little bit, just take a breath, do something fun, do something challenging that can, like build some fun, challenging Lego model or do a 3,000 piece puzzle, something like where like at the end you can look back and see that you did mow the lawn, wash your car, so like
Yeah.
these kind of things that sort of, release the happiness, feel good neurotransmitters. Getting some exercise releases those endorphins and such. If you're in the house with your partner, get together, get intimate, that releases some feel good endorphins and such. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to be happy and healthy even when there's a global pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
We need people to survive this, and if you need to put on your favorite comedy show to laugh, your comedy whatever movie or something to laugh, even though there's this like global pandemic going on, it's
Mm-hmm.
okay. That's how people get through.
Yes. I love that.
Um,
Thank you. Well, thank you, Fidi, for being here. And you guys, thank you for watching Homebound with Rika. Stay with us. Next week, we're going to be foraging
oh
on,
my.
on our daily walk,
Oh, that'd be
eating,
so much fun.
eating weeds with Rika. Fidi, you'll have to watch it. And definitely check out the description so you can see some of the resources we're posting below. I really have so much gratitude for Fidi for letting us Zoom. I know he charges a lot to give therapy to people, but he's really
It's
good, as you can see.
it's been a blast. We got anything for my really good friend since what, fourth grade?
Fourth grade.
Fourth grade. Good
Just like the olden
times.
days. All right, I'm gonna say goodbye and stop recording, but I'll finish the conversation with you, Fidi. So I'm pressing stop
Okay.
right